platformer is a long-time staple of video games. It's a type of game that excels in its simplicity, and it's able to make a fairly mundane task of jumping on stuff fun through pinpoint controls and personal achievement. Or, moderately accurate controls and lots of dying. Now, a lot of modern games have platforming elements in them, but for your game to be a real platformer, jumping combined with some sort of collecting has to be the core game mechanic. Unfortunately, this means that the only good platformer in existence is the Ice Climber stage from Super Smash Bros. Melee. But in all seriousness, Mario is the king of platforming games. Donkey Kong was literally the first platformer ever. It was the first game that allowed you to jump over stuff at all. His original name was literally Jumpman. But Donkey Kong wouldn't be Mario's only first when it came to the platforming genre, as it clearly wasn't enough for him to pioneer 2D jumping, he had to do it in 3D as well. In 1996, Nintendo released Super Mario 64, a landmark game for not only platformers but 3D gaming. Suddenly the idea of moving freely in a 3D space made sense, and you usually weren't stuck staring at a wall while doing it. It had tight controls, fun levels, fights with Bowser, and a terrifying piano, and you can fly away. It also has one set difficulty, allowing the average player to make their way through the game and speedrunners to do some truly ludicrous things. It also meant that you died a lot. It's not overwhelming, but it's also not that easy to finish either, let alone 100%, something that I admittedly still haven't done. Now, Mario's first 3D romp is a historic achievement in video game history, but if you've read the title of this video, it's not actually what we're here to talk about. Because in 1998, a little British company by the name of Rareware, known for making some pretty good platformers themselves, tried their hand at making a 3D platformer and struck gold. Banjo Kazooie was released on June 29, 1998 to wild success. This came after a multi-year development cycle that started as an SNES game titled Project Dream starring a young boy named Edison fighting pirates, and somehow ended with an N64 game where two talking animals collect jigsaw pieces and fight a witch. Just normal stuff. But the decision to go with The Bear and the Bird would prove genius for Rare and Nintendo, as BK sold nearly 2 million copies in the US and another 400,000 back in Japan. The total sales numbers for the N64 version sit somewhere around 3.6 million worldwide, making it the 10th best-selling N64 game of all time. The aforementioned Super Mario 64 sits at the top of that list at 12 million, aka 70 million fewer than Wii Sports. 1998 was a loaded time for video games though, and Banjo still managed to get recognition and stand out. Here's just a few of the games that were released that year: Resident Evil 2, Pokemon Red and Blue in North America, Spyro, Metal Gear Solid, Crash Bandicoot Warped, and Ocarina of Time. I'm not going to sit here and attempt to convince you that Banjo was actually the best game ever, or even the best game of 1998. That probably goes to Ocarina. But man, is it just the perfect video game. So I'm just going to gush about some of my favorite parts of the game now.
Yahoo!
It's just so clean. Yes, Super Mario 64 pioneered 3D platforming controls, but BK's are just so much better. Maybe it's the double jump that gives you a little margin for error, but there's never really any point where you can blame the camera or controls for why you missed a jump. You're just bad. The running as Banjo feels smooth, even if you never use it because Talon Trot is better. It also doesn't have terrible swimming controls in a 3D platformer. Except maybe that one part of Clanker's Cavern where you have to swim through the key and also get the bubbles to stay alive, and also you're like 100 feet under the water and oh god, please no, stop, turn my music off, why is that music playing? The flying is oddly the weakest part of the game, control-wise, but it still works most of the time. Peak Bomb is another story. There are some jiggies that require specific abilities or mumbo transformations, but all that does is spice up the gameplay a little. You can pretty much do anything else at any time in a beautiful example of non-linear gameplay. It distances itself from Mario 64 Senpai by just throwing everything into one level and telling you to fetch. You don't reset after collecting a Jiggy, you just go on to the next one. It's a genius design in allowing freedom while also keeping someone continuously engaged in your game. Whether you're running, walking, flying, swimming, or bouncing, you're always collecting. That continuous engagement is the key here. Your overall goal is to collect the Jiggies to progress, but along the way there's basically a non-stop sensory overload of stuff that just ruthlessly attacks your dopamine sensors. Music notes, Jinjos, Mumbo tokens, honeycombs, eggs, red feathers, gold feathers, extra lives, and everything else you collect gives its own unique little music cue because Banjo is actually Ivan Pavlov, but that's just a theory, a game theory. Then there's the final fight, which, I guess, spoilers for Banjo Kazooie, starts as a literal game show board game thing with a fake ending, and isn't very easy. Then if you're a good person and collected all the 900 notes and 100 Jiggies, you get some extra health and items as you prepare to fight Grunty. And then fight her again, and again, and again, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. It's not an easy boss fight, okay? Don't worry about it. The final battle is the perfect combo of hard to make it rewarding, but not hard to the point of stupidity. It makes you just really, probably too much enjoy watching Grunty get sent flying off the castle by the... He's a bear, wearing a backpack that has a bird in it. My god, we should have just stopped making video games in 1998. The cartoonish nature of the characters is what really makes the whole game shine thematically. You're not supposed to take it seriously, you're literally a bear wearing shorts. It allows the game to kind of do whatever it wants in terms of enemies and side characters because right up front you've already suspended any disbelief. Fight a giant crab? Sure. Vegetables? Yup. Angry life preservers? Yup. There's also just something I love about the voice acting. It just fits the mood of the game so well. I think a fully voiced BK would have been extremely weird, but also no voice acting at all is a little dull. It's certainly not for everyone, and it's one of the most common complaints you'll see about the game, but there's wondrous charm to listening to what noises you're going to hear next. The personality that all the characters have and exude throughout the game is what brings this all home and allows the voice work to shine. Well, put voice work in quotes. Grunty rhyming literally every sentence, Banjo's happy-go-lucky personality combined with Kazooie's snark, Bottle's bookishness. The writing and the comedy in this game is it's just so good. Quick aside, because I think Grunty deserves her own section as a spectacular villain. In a game as cartoonish as BK, you need a villain who's comedic without being a joke, but also not some gruff and tough, big, bad, evil specter. We know her motivation right away, making herself beautiful. She sets up the story in one quick action, kidnapping Tootie, and bam, she's the enemy. And then if you get a game over, she succeeds and is hot as hell. What really separates her is just the non-stop chattering she does at you from her, I guess, massive tower fortress-wide intercom system. She makes fun of you, calls you a goon, taunts you for not getting a Jiggy, tries to get Kazooie to betray you and join her. This goes on for hours. Makes the final battle a true emotional payoff and more than just gameplay because you've been putting up for her for literally hours. Also, she designed Rusty Bucket Bay, so God, the villain of the year.
Whee!
Since there isn't too much change in the core gameplay or that deep of a story, the levels and level design are what really keep you going. You got Freeze Easy Peak, Treasure Trove Cove, Bubble Gloop Swamp, the unescapable hellscape that is Rusty Bucket Bay, Click Clock Wood. Every single level in the game is memorable and they're all, even Rusty Bucket Bay, designed perfectly. The levels aren't so big that you're left searching aimlessly for Jiggies or notes or anything else, but they're complex enough that there's no level that really ever feels boring or tedious. In that classic video game fashion, the ability you learn in any given level will be important in the challenges in that level. Those wading boots to avoid getting bit in Bubble Goop Swamp, the Beak Bomb to repeatedly miss the snowmen in Freeze Easy Peak, and the Wonder Wing to run through the death saws in Clanker's Cavern. For some reason, this mechanic ends in Gobi's Valley. I guess they just kind of want you to master the gameplay while you're about halfway through the game. But it's still, you know, a fun little treat. Can I also just talk about Clanker's Cabin for a second? Water levels are inherently not great, particularly in 3D platformers. And the swimming in Banjo is fine, but dear God, I'm still traumatized from swimming down into the main area and just having, like, this staring back at me. I still remember it. Like, I just shut off Man 64 immediately and, like, ran upstairs, because I think it was in the basement. It's just like, oh boy, why? I know it's like a 64-bit rendering, but why Nintendo? But other than that, the game is beautiful, varied, and has a very solid difficulty curve. It's not Mario 64 tough, but the last few levels, Rusty Bucket Bay, certainly aren't easy. Finally, what pulls this masterpiece all together is... This game has my second, to the sequel actually, favorite music in a video game ever. All of the music was composed by my incredible Scottish father, Grant Kirkhope, and it starts off right as you boot up the game with that god-tier anime opening. Also, the main theme is literally a banjo and a kazoo because not only is the music good, it's relevant. There isn't a bad song in the entire game either. Spiral Mountain, Grunty's Lair, Freezeezy Peak, Click, Clock, Wood, Folks. I'm still trying to figure out if I love the Click Clock Wood music because it's so good, or because it took me like 5 hours to beat it the first time and it's burned into my brain. It's just like the perfect cheery loop to play while you just can't hit that. Jump, Banjo, please. Or like the last time I played, wandering around because you missed exactly 2 notes somewhere in one of the 4 different seasons and you don't know where it is, and you're streaming and people are making fun of you and you're crying inside. Which is something I didn't even really talk about actually in the levels section, but is one of the most unique game mechanics I've ever seen. If you die, have fun because you're gonna have to go collect all those notes again, buddy. Probably in Rusty Bucket Bay. But the piece of the game that, in my mind, is what separates it from nearly any other game I've ever played is the music blending. I'm sure there's some official term for this, but I'm just gonna call it music blending, because whatever, it's like it blends the music into a different genre. Genre switching? I don't know. The music blends and changes depending on where you are in the overworld or the level. There are about 12 different renditions of Grunty's Lair theme, and it changes depending on what level you're near. In the levels themselves, the music is different in a cave or underwater, and it helps build the atmosphere. This is something that the cool kids call immersion. Immersion. The music conveys to you where you are, what you're doing, what's around you, whether you're flying above the snow, out on the beach, or literally entering hell. And this is all even before we talk about the addictive little Jiggy sound cue or the Jinjo sound cue. It's a really good game, guys. I really like this game. The music is ultimately the bow that ties the rest of the game together, telling you that you're a bear and a bird on a quest, and even if inanimate objects are trying to kill you, damn it, you're just gonna have some fun. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully some of it made sense. Just really wanted to talk about Banjo Kazooie and attempted at my best to make it coherent. Anyway, thanks again. Hopefully I can make more of these types of videos, because this is obviously the first video on this channel. I want to talk about some anime too, because I don't know if you noticed in this video, but we're talking about some anime. And I don't know, I just, at the very least, I really enjoyed making this video. So thanks for watching. Hit that that like button and that subscribe, and I guess the bell. I don't really know how this works. And I'll see you again next time. Bye!